Ladies and gentlemen, friends, brothers and sisters, life is too precious to waste on negativity. Our time, our energy, our peace of mind, these are treasures. But sadly, many of us spend them on the wrong people and the wrong behaviors. Today, let us reflect on 7 behaviors that we should never, ever tolerate in our lives. Because when we stop tolerating them, we start living with dignity, peace, and true happiness. Disrespect is something that silently kills our confidence and steals away the dignity we deserve in life. Many of us don't even realize when we begin tolerating it, because it often starts small. Maybe someone interrupts you constantly when you are speaking. Maybe someone makes a joke at your expense in front of others. Maybe someone rolls their eyes every time you share an idea, or they dismiss your emotions as too much or not important. At first, you laugh it off, telling yourself, "Oh, it's not a big deal." But over time, those small cuts accumulate and they start carving away your self-respect. Think about a simple example from everyday life. Imagine you are at a restaurant with friends, and while everyone else orders freely, when you speak, someone mocks your choice of food. It seems harmless at that moment, maybe even funny to others, but if that pattern continues, you begin to question your own choices. You might even hesitate to speak next time. That is the silent danger of disrespect. It makes us shrink when life was meant for us to grow. Respect is not about grand gestures. It is about the small, consistent actions that show another person that they matter. When someone listens to you without looking at their phone, that's respect. When someone values your time and doesn't keep you waiting endlessly, that's respect. When someone may disagree with you, but still allows you the dignity of your opinion, that's respect. And when these things are missing, life becomes a burden instead of a blessing. In relationships, disrespect often hides under the mask of love. A partner might say, "I love you," but if their words constantly belittle you, if they mock your dreams, or insult you during arguments, then that love becomes empty. Real love and real friendship can never exist without respect. You cannot claim to care for someone while breaking their dignity. Just like a flower cannot bloom without sunlight, a relationship cannot flourish without respect. At the workplace, disrespect can take the form of being constantly overlooked. Imagine giving your best to a project, working late nights, sacrificing your comfort, but when the credit is given, your name isn't even mentioned. Or perhaps a colleague constantly interrupts you in meetings, speaking over your ideas. These are not small things. They send a message that your voice does not matter. If we accept that message for too long, it slowly conditions us to remain silent. But remember, silence in the face of disrespect is not peace, it is surrender. Even within families, disrespect can be deeply painful. Parents may sometimes dismiss the dreams of their children, saying, "This is useless," or "Do something practical." While advice can come from love, the tone of disrespect can leave scars. Similarly, children may disrespect parents by taking their sacrifices for granted. When gratitude is absent, love feels incomplete. A family thrives on mutual respect. Without it, even the closest bonds feel like chains instead of support. We must understand that respect is not about superiority or inferiority. It is not about age, wealth, position, or title. A janitor deserves the same respect as a CEO. A child's feelings deserve the same acknowledgement as an adult's. Respect is about recognizing the humanity in each person. When we start ranking who deserves respect and who doesn't, we lose our own humanity. The reason disrespect should never be tolerated is simple: it directly attacks your sense of self-worth. And your self-worth is the anchor of your entire life. When you value yourself, you walk with confidence, you take healthy risks, you speak with clarity, and you attract better relationships. But when you tolerate disrespect, you begin to question your worth, and soon you start believing the lies others tell you. That is how bright souls become dim. But rejecting disrespect doesn't mean responding with anger or arrogance. It doesn't mean fighting every insult with louder words. Sometimes it simply means walking away with dignity. Sometimes it means calmly setting a boundary and saying, "This is not acceptable." Sometimes it means choosing to surround yourself with people who uplift you rather than people who tear you down. Protecting your dignity does not make you proud, it makes you wise. Let's consider a small story. A teacher once held up a 100 rupee note in front of a classroom and asked, "Who wants this?" Every student raised their hand. The teacher then crumpled it, stomped on it, and asked again, "Who still wants this?" Everyone's hand went up again. The teacher smiled and said, "This note may be crumpled, dirty, or stepped on, but it still holds its value. And so do you. Never let someone else's treatment of you reduce your worth." This simple example is enough to remind us that our value is inherent. No amount of disrespect can change who we truly are unless we begin to accept it ourselves. When we allow disrespect, we are teaching others how to treat us. Boundaries are not walls, they are fences with gates. They protect what is valuable inside and allow in only what is healthy. Setting boundaries is not about pushing people away, it's about creating space where only respect and love can thrive. So, if there is one lesson to take home, it is this: yourself. Respect is non-negotiable. Protect it like you would protect your most precious treasure, because once lost, it is very difficult to regain. Respect yourself first, and others will follow. Value your voice, and others will listen. Honor your dignity, and you will create an environment where love, peace, and happiness can truly grow. Disrespect may seem like just a behavior from others, but in reality, it is a mirror showing us how much we are willing to accept. Choose wisely, because every choice shapes your life. And always remember, when you say no to disrespect, you are actually saying yes to a life filled with dignity, self-worth, and peace. Negativity is like smoke in a room. It slowly fills the space, makes breathing difficult, and before you realize it, you are suffocating. Constant negativity is not always obvious. It doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers quietly into your ears until your mind begins to believe it. It is one of the most dangerous environments to live in because it quietly eats away at your happiness, your motivation, and even your health. That is why it is something we must never tolerate. Think about a simple day in your life. You wake up with hope, planning to do something meaningful. But the moment you share your idea with someone negative, they immediately say, "That won't work," or "Don't waste your time." Instead of encouragement, you receive discouragement. Instead of fuel, you are given poison. Slowly, you start doubting yourself. The idea that seemed so bright in your head now feels impossible. That is the power of constant negativity. It can kill dreams even before they are born. Negativity is like a cloud that follows people who carry it. Even when the sun is shining, they find the shadow. If you say, "The weather is beautiful today," they will reply, "Yes, but tomorrow it will rain." If you say, "I finally achieved this goal," they will say, "Yes, but it's not enough." Such people are not just critics of the world, they are critics of life itself. Being around them is exhausting because they drain energy instead of giving it. Imagine working in an office where every suggestion is met with, "That's not possible," or "We tried that before and failed." Imagine being in a family where every small plan for joy is shut down with, "What's the use?" This constant stream of negative responses builds a culture where creativity dies, laughter disappears, and progress stops. And the sad part is, after a while, you may even become one of them, speaking the same negative words without realizing. That is how contagious negativity can be. But negativity does not only come from others, sometimes it comes from within us. There are days when our own mind becomes the enemy. A small mistake makes us say, "I'm such a failure." A delayed goal makes us whisper, "Maybe I'll never succeed." These thoughts might feel real, but they are not truth. They are just clouds passing by. If we attach to them, we give them power. If we learn to let them go, we find peace again. Life is not about avoiding every challenge. It is about facing them without drowning in negative self-talk. To understand this better, think about a glass of water with a drop of ink. The ink spreads, turning the whole water dark. Negativity works the same way. One negative thought, one negative comment, one negative person, if allowed to stay, can darken an entire day, an entire week, sometimes even an entire life. The trick is not to stop the world from pouring drops of negativity into our lives. That is impossible. The trick is to keep adding so much fresh water, positivity, gratitude, and hope, that the ink loses its power. There's a well-known story of two wolves that live inside every person. One wolf represents negativity, anger, doubt, fear, and jealousy. The other wolf represents positivity, love, hope, kindness, and joy. Which wolf becomes stronger? The one you feed. If we spend our time around constant complainers, critics, and pessimists, we are feeding the negative wolf. But if we choose people who encourage us, inspire us, and believe in us, we are feeding the positive one. Our environment has more power than we think. In practical life, negativity can show up in many subtle ways. A student may stop trying because every teacher or parent keeps saying, "You can't do it." An employee may lose confidence because their manager always focuses on mistakes, never on effort. A friend may hesitate to share good news because they know it will be met with jealousy instead of joy. Over time, these small moments of negativity become heavy weights. The person begins to carry them everywhere, and eventually, they stop shining altogether. This is why it is important to recognize negativity and distance yourself from it. Not with anger, not with hatred, but with wisdom. Just like we avoid polluted air to protect our lungs, we must avoid polluted thoughts to protect our peace. It is not about cutting people off harshly, but about limiting how much influence they have on our mind. Even if we cannot always control what others say, We can always control what we allow to enter our hearts. Negativity is also a thief of gratitude. When we focus only on what is missing, we fail to see what is already present. A negative person may complain about not having a luxurious car while forgetting the blessing of even having two legs to walk. They may complain about not having enough money while ignoring the gift of health. Gratitude is the antidote to negativity. When we start noticing the small blessings in daily life, the air we breathe, the food we eat, the people who love us, suddenly negativity loses its grip. Remember, life is too short to live under the weight of negative energy. Protect your space, choose your company, and feed the right wolf inside you. People will always talk, circumstances will not always be perfect, challenges will always come, but your response is your choice. You can either allow negativity to build a prison around you, or you can choose positivity and walk freely into a brighter future. So never tolerate constant negativity, not from others, not from yourself. Guard your thoughts, guard your heart, and surround yourself with people who see the sunshine even on cloudy days. Because life is not meant to be endured in bitterness. It is meant to be celebrated with hope, love, and joy. Dishonesty is like a crack in a beautiful glass vase. From far away, the vase may still look fine, but once that crack begins, it can only spread until the whole structure breaks apart. In the same way, dishonesty might seem small at the beginning, perhaps even harmless, a little lie here, a hidden truth there, but slowly it destroys trust, and once trust is gone, everything else collapses. That is why dishonesty should never be tolerated, because it attacks the very foundation of all human connections. Think about it, when you trust someone, you open your heart to them, you allow them into your inner world. You share your secrets, your weaknesses, your dreams. You relax because you believe they are safe. But when dishonesty enters, it is like a thief in the night, stealing the peace you had in that relationship. Suddenly, you start to wonder, what else did they hide? What else is not true? Even if the lie was small, the seed of doubt has been planted. And once doubt grows, the comfort of that relationship begins to fade. In everyday life, dishonesty shows up in many forms. A child hides their report card from parents, fearing punishment. A friend pretends to be supportive, but secretly feels envy and speaks against you behind your back. A business partner promises fairness, but takes more than their share. These may seem like different situations, but the result is always the same: broken trust. Without honesty, there is no real friendship, no genuine love, no lasting partnership. All that remains is a fragile shell, ready to break at the slightest touch. Consider a simple example. Imagine you are buying fruits from a vendor and he gives you apples. They look fresh and red from the outside, but when you bite into one, it is rotten inside. How would you feel? Cheated, disappointed, perhaps even angry. That is exactly what dishonesty does to human beings. From the outside, everything seems fine, but the inside tells a different story. And when the truth finally comes out, the bitterness is always stronger than the sweetness. Dishonesty also has a way of multiplying. One lie rarely stays alone. To cover up one falsehood, another is told, and then another, until the liar themselves becomes trapped in their own web. They live in constant fear of being caught, of being exposed, of losing what they tried so hard to protect. And ironically, The very thing they fear eventually comes true because lies have short legs. They cannot travel far before the truth catches up. In families, dishonesty is especially painful. When parents lie to children, even with good intentions, it creates confusion and mistrust. When children lie to parents, it distances the relationship and blocks open communication. A family can only grow in love when truth flows freely. Similarly, in friendships, dishonesty is the silent killer. A friend who hides their real intentions is not a friend, but a stranger wearing a mask. And in marriages, dishonesty is like termites in wood. It eats slowly from within until one day, the entire structure collapses without warning. There is a story of a shepherd boy who would shout, "Wolf, wolf," even when there was no wolf, just to get attention. People rushed to help him the first few times, but after realizing he was lying, they stopped believing him. Finally, when a real wolf came, he cried for help, but no one responded, and he suffered the consequences. This story, though simple, carries a deep lesson. Dishonesty may bring temporary gain, but it always leads to long-term loss. Once trust is gone, even truth is doubted. Honesty, on the other hand, may sometimes be uncomfortable. It may bring short-term challenges, but it always builds long-term respect. People may not like the truth in the moment, but they will respect you for it later. For example, if an employee makes a mistake at work but admits it honestly, the manager may be upset initially but will value their integrity. But if the same mistake is hidden and later discovered, the damage is far worse. Honesty is difficult, but dishonesty is destructive. When dishonesty becomes a habit, it damages not only relationships, but also the person who lies. They begin to lose their own sense of self. They are no longer living authentically, but constantly acting in a play where they must remember which lies they told to whom. It is exhausting to live this way. The mind cannot rest because it is busy protecting lies. Peace and dishonesty can never live in the same heart. Even in small, daily matters, honesty is powerful. A shopkeeper who gives the correct change. A student who admits they forgot their homework instead of making excuses. A friend who says, "I can't come today," instead of inventing stories. These small acts of truth build reliability. People begin to trust them, value them, and rely on them. Because honesty is not just about big promises, it is about the consistency of small truths. The reason dishonesty should never be tolerated is because it steals what is most valuable in life: trust. And trust, once broken, is like glass. It may be repaired, but the cracks will always show. That is why we must protect honesty in ourselves and demand it from others. It is not about being harsh or judgmental toward those who lie, but about protecting the purity of our own lives. We deserve relationships built on truth, not illusions. So let us remember, dishonesty might seem easy, but it always comes at a heavy price. Honesty might seem hard, but it always pays in the long run. Choose honesty, because a life built on truth may face storms, but it will never collapse. Never tolerate dishonesty, because your peace, your trust, and your dignity are far too precious to be sacrificed for falsehood. Manipulation is one of the most silent yet powerful poisons in human relationships. Unlike open conflict, which can be seen and addressed, manipulation hides behind sweet words, fake smiles, and clever tactics. It is dangerous because it does not only control actions, it controls emotions. It makes you question your own judgment, doubt your own worth, and sometimes even feel guilty for things that were never your fault. This is why manipulation should never be tolerated, because it slowly steals away your freedom, your peace of mind, and your sense of self. At its core, manipulation is about control. It is when someone uses your kindness, your love, or your loyalty as a weapon against you. Imagine a friend who always asks for help but never shows up when you need them. If you hesitate even once, they might say, "I thought you were my true friend." Those words are not about friendship, they are about controlling you through guilt. Or think about a partner who makes you feel selfish whenever you take time for yourself, saying, "If you really loved me, you would do this for me." This is not love, this is emotional manipulation. One of the most common forms of manipulation is guilt tripping. People know that you care deeply, so they press that button again and again. For example, a parent might say to their child, "After all I've done for you, this is how you repay me." Or a boss might tell an employee, "If you really valued this company, you would work late every night." These statements are not fair expectations. They are strategies to control behavior by planting guilt in your heart. Another form of manipulation is twisting the truth. Manipulators are skilled at turning situations around so that the blame never falls on them. Suppose two friends argue and one clearly said something hurtful. Instead of apologizing, the manipulator might say, "You're too sensitive. You always make things bigger than they are." Now, instead of focusing on the hurtful comment, the other person is left doubting their own feelings. This is called gaslighting, and it is one of the most destructive manipulative tactics. It makes people lose trust in their own reality. The workplace is also full of manipulation. Some colleagues may pretend to support you, but behind closed doors, they spread rumors or take credit for your ideas. They smile to your face but work against you when no one is looking. A manipulative boss may use fear as a tool. "You should be grateful to even have this job. There are thousands waiting to replace you." Such words are meant to break confidence and keep people under control. And sadly, many tolerate it because they fear losing security, not realizing they are losing peace and dignity every single day. In families too, manipulation can be very subtle. A child might cry loudly to get their way, not because of genuine pain, but because they know it forces attention. A sibling may exaggerate their sacrifices to appear as the most caring one, leaving the others feeling inadequate. Even in close relationships, someone might constantly remind you of your past mistakes so that you never feel free enough to question their behavior. Over time, this cycle of control becomes a prison where the victim feels too weak to escape. What makes manipulation so harmful is that it disguises itself as love, care, or concern. A manipulator rarely says, "I want to control you." Instead, they say, "I'm doing this for your own good," or "I just want what's best for you." But if their actions make you feel small, powerless, guilty, or constantly doubting yourself, then it is not love. It is control wearing a mask of love. True love never manipulates, it liberates. True care never chains, it empowers. The effect of constant manipulation is devastating. Slowly, the victim begins to lose confidence in their own decisions. They second guess everything. They feel afraid to express their feelings because they anticipate being blamed or mocked. Their self-esteem begins to shrink, and soon they no longer recognize who they were before the manipulation began. It's like a bird that once flew freely but has now forgotten how to open its wings because someone clipped them slowly, one feather at a time. But breaking free from manipulation is possible. It begins with awareness. The moment you recognize that someone is twisting your emotions, you take back your power. For example, when guilt tripped, you can calmly remind yourself, love is not proven by blind sacrifice. Love is proven by balance and respect. When gaslighted, you can remind yourself, my feelings are valid. Just because someone dismisses them does not make them untrue. Awareness is the first step to reclaiming dignity. A story is often told of a monkey trap used by hunters. They place fruit inside a jar with a narrow opening. The monkey slips its hand in and grabs the fruit. But because the fist is now larger, it cannot pull the hand out. If only it let go of the fruit, it would be free, but the desire for control keeps it trapped. Manipulators work the same way. They hold on to control, but eventually it traps them too. And for the victim, the lesson is clear. Sometimes freedom comes from letting go. Letting go of people who refuse to respect you. Letting go of guilt that was never yours. Letting go of relationships built on control instead of care. Manipulation thrives in silence. The less you question it, the stronger it becomes. But the moment you recognize it and stand up for yourself with calm strength, its power begins to fade. Saying no is not selfish. Setting boundaries is not rude. Walking away from control is not cruelty. It is courage. So never tolerate manipulation in your life. Value your freedom, your peace, and your dignity above the temporary comfort of pleasing others. Because in the end, life is too short to live under someone else's strings. You were created to live fully, not to be controlled quietly. When you break free from manipulation, you rediscover your strength, your confidence, and most importantly, your true self. Lack of accountability is one of the most destructive behaviors that weakens both individuals and relationships. Accountability is the ability to say, yes, I made a mistake, or yes, I was responsible for this outcome. When that quality is missing, blame becomes the favorite escape route. People point fingers, make excuses, or play the victim, but they never own up to their role. And when accountability is absent, growth becomes impossible, because how can we improve something we refuse to admit exists? We see this lack of accountability in everyday life. Imagine a student who fails an exam. Instead of saying, I didn't study enough, they say, the teacher doesn't like me, or the questions were unfair. In that moment, they protect their ego, but they sacrifice their future. If they don't acknowledge their lack of preparation, how will they ever improve next time? Or think about a colleague at work who always misses deadlines, but says, the system is slow, or other departments didn't support me. While these excuses may sound convincing, they prevent the person from growing into reliability. Accountability is about taking ownership, and without it, progress stops. In relationships, the absence of accountability is even more painful. Imagine a couple who argues, and one person clearly hurts the other with words. Instead of saying, I shouldn't have said that, I'm sorry, they say, well, you made me angry, or you're too sensitive. Instead of apologizing, they shift the blame back onto the victim. Over time, this pattern damages trust. The partner who is hurt feels unseen and unheard, while the one who refuses accountability continues the cycle of harm. Love cannot survive in such soil because love requires humility, and humility is the twin of accountability. Even in families, accountability plays a huge role. A parent may promise a child something, but later break that promise. Instead of admitting it honestly, they may say, "You shouldn't expect so much," or "Life is not fair." A child learns from such moments. They learn either to speak truth and admit mistakes, or they learn to avoid responsibility. In this way, lack of accountability becomes a cycle passed down from generation to generation until someone decides to break it by choosing honesty. The truth is, blaming others is easier than looking in the mirror. But every time we avoid accountability, we cheat ourselves of growth. When a plant does not grow well, a wise gardener doesn't blame the sun or the rain. They ask, "Did I water it enough? Did I plant it in the right soil?" In the same way, when life doesn't go well, the wise person looks within and asks, "What can I do differently next time?" This question is the seed of progress. Without it, life remains stuck. One of the clearest examples of accountability comes from sports. Imagine a captain of a cricket or football team. When the team loses, a true leader says, "The responsibility is mine. We'll work harder and come back stronger." But a poor leader says, "The players were weak," or "The referee was unfair." Notice the difference. One takes ownership, the other avoids it. Over time, the leader who takes responsibility gains respect, while the one who avoids it loses the trust of their team. Accountability builds leadership. Lack of accountability destroys it. There is also a personal cost to lacking accountability. A person who always blames others may feel temporarily relieved, but deep inside, they know the truth. And this creates an inner conflict. They cannot fully respect themselves because they know they are not honest with themselves. Over time, this erodes confidence. The person begins to live a double life, one for the world, where they appear blameless, and one within, where guilt quietly eats away at them. Accountability, though difficult, is what heals this inner conflict. It brings peace of mind because it aligns our actions with our conscience. A well-known story illustrates this power. A man once borrowed his friend's car and returned it with a scratch on the door. He could have pretended nothing happened, but instead he admitted it and said, "I'm sorry, I will fix it." His friend was upset at first but later said, "I trust you even more now because you were honest." Accountability may cause short-term discomfort, but it always creates long-term respect. Lack of accountability may protect you for a moment, but it will cost you trust forever. At work, at home, in friendships, or in society, accountability is the foundation of progress. Think about governments or organizations that fail to admit their mistakes. They blame circumstances, other people, or bad luck. What happens? Problems pile up, corruption grows, and the people suffer. But when leaders admit mistakes and take responsibility, they create hope. People begin to trust them because accountability is the bridge that connects authority with credibility. Lack of accountability should never be tolerated, not from others and not from ourselves. When someone in your life refuses to take responsibility for their actions again and again, it is a warning sign. They are choosing comfort over growth, ego over truth. Being around them will drain you because you will always end up carrying the burden of their mistakes. But when you choose accountability for yourself, you inspire others too. You show by example that admitting mistakes is not weakness, it is strength. It takes courage to say, I was wrong, but it takes far more courage to live a lie pretending you were right. In the end, accountability is not just about mistakes, it is about integrity. It is the invisible thread that holds together relationships, workplaces, families, and societies. When accountability is present, trust grows, respect deepens, and progress becomes natural. When it is absent, relationships weaken, growth stops, and peace disappears. That is why we must never tolerate a lack of accountability. Because life without responsibility is like a ship without a captain. It may float for a while, but eventually it will drift aimlessly and crash. So let us remember this simple truth: mistakes are not the problem, but refusing to own them is. Everyone fails, everyone slips, everyone makes wrong choices. But those who accept responsibility rise stronger, while those who deny it remain trapped in the same place. Choose accountability for yourself, demand it from others, and never settle for anything less. Because accountability is the seed from which trust, respect, and true growth are born. Abuse, whether physical, emotional, or verbal, is one of the most painful realities that can poison a person's spirit. It is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it hides behind sweet words, gentle smiles, or what appears to be care. But abuse, no matter the form, always leaves scars. Physical abuse may leave visible wounds, but emotional and verbal abuse often cuts deeper, because the wounds are unseen yet felt every day in the heart. Abuse is not love, and it is not discipline. It is the misuse of power, control, and words to break someone's confidence, silence their voice, and weaken their spirit. Everyday examples make this clearer. Imagine a child growing up in a home where one parent constantly shouts, criticizes, or even raises a hand. That child may not only fear their parent, but may also grow up believing that they are not good enough. The bruises may heal, but the words, "You're worthless," or "You'll never succeed," can echo in the child's mind for years. Later in life, when that child becomes an adult, they may hesitate to chase dreams or doubt their worth in relationships, all because of seeds planted by abuse. Emotional abuse can be even more silent, but just as deadly. Think about a partner who constantly belittles the other, makes them feel guilty for speaking up, or uses manipulation to control their choices. They may say, "Without me, you are nothing," or "If you really loved me, you would do what I say." These phrases are not love. They are chains designed to keep someone trapped. Many people endure such abuse in silence, thinking it is normal or believing they deserve it. But abuse should never be normalized. Real love uplifts, supports, and respects, while abuse destroys. Verbal abuse, too, is something most people encounter at some point in life. Harsh words, insults, mocking, or constant criticism have the power to break down even the strongest person. Imagine a workplace where a boss insults their employees every day, calling them useless or stupid. Even if the employee works hard, those words slowly chip away at their self-esteem. They begin to question their worth, not because they lack talent, but because they were fed poison disguised as feedback. Words can either build or destroy, and verbal abuse is one of the sharpest weapons that can wound the human heart. What makes abuse even more dangerous is that it often hides behind justifications. A parent may say, "I hit you because I love you." A partner may say, "I control you because I care about you." A boss may say, "I insult you because I want you to improve." But love never causes fear, care never demands silence, and guidance never comes in the form of humiliation. Abuse thrives when excuses cover its face, but when we call it by its true name, we strip it of power. In daily life, many people carry invisible scars of abuse. The student who never raises their hand in class may have been silenced too many times at home. The employee who fears speaking up may have endured years of verbal attacks from a previous boss. The partner who stays quiet in an unhealthy relationship may be carrying years of emotional manipulation. Abuse does not just hurt in the moment. It shapes how a person views themselves and the world. That is why breaking free from it and refusing to tolerate it is one of the greatest acts of self-respect. Imagine a young woman who was constantly insulted by her partner. For years, she believed his words that she was not smart enough or not beautiful enough. But one day, she decided to step out of that relationship. Slowly, she began rebuilding her confidence. She took classes, pursued her dreams, and surrounded herself with supportive people. Over time, she realized that none of the insults were true. They were simply tools of control. Her story shows that while abuse can break a person, healing is possible when they recognize their worth and choose not to tolerate mistreatment anymore. Even in friendships, abuse can exist. A so-called friend who constantly mocks, spreads rumors, or manipulates another is not a friend at all. Friendships are meant to bring joy, support, and laughter, not fear and insecurity. Yet many people hold on to such toxic bonds because they fear loneliness. But one truth must be remembered: it is better to walk alone with dignity than to walk with someone who abuses your trust and kindness. Abuse can be broken when we choose to recognize it, name it, and stand against it. Silence protects the abuser, but courage protects the victim. Standing up against abuse may feel terrifying, but it is the first step toward freedom. Sometimes that means speaking out, sometimes that means walking away, and sometimes that means seeking help. What matters most is realizing that no one deserves to be abused. Every human being deserves respect, kindness, and safety. The long-term damage of abuse can be devastating, but so can the long-term strength of those who rise above it. Many great leaders, thinkers, and ordinary people with extraordinary courage have faced abuse in one form or another. Instead of allowing it to define them, they chose to use their pain as fuel to grow stronger. Their stories remind us that abuse does not have to be the final chapter. It can be the beginning of a new story filled with resilience, healing, and freedom. At its core, abuse strips people of dignity, but the refusal to accept abuse restores it. Every person has the right to live without fear, without humiliation, and without violence. When we tolerate abuse, we weaken ourselves. When we reject it, we reclaim our power. Abuse may break bones, it may break hearts, but it can never break the spirit of someone who chooses to rise. And when we stand up against abuse, not just for ourselves, but for others too, we become the light that guides people out of darkness. So remember, these physical bruises may fade, but emotional and verbal scars can linger for years. Do not let anyone convince you that abuse is love or that you deserve it. You deserve respect, peace, and kindness. Refuse to tolerate abuse, walk away from it, and if needed, fight against it. Because life is too precious to be lived under chains of fear. Choose freedom, choose dignity, and choose the courage to stand tall against abuse in every form.